Yeah, by acquisition. It's just a mic calling from 1KBS. I'm calling a little late, but
Morning. My name is Elizabeth Makinich, and I'm proud and privileged to be the moderator for today's event. I want to tell you that we are not a professional group of individuals who are accustomed to press conferences. But we want to speak honestly about an issue that we believe impacts on all Canadians, not just Canadians and Vietnamese Canadian communities and families. It's an issue we feel it is enormously disruptive, that threatens trade relations with a very important Pacific power, Vietnam. And we have three speakers actually today, along with a number of others from different walks of life. We're all from different walks of life, who will give their answers to whatever questions you want to put to us today. I want to introduce Julie Nguyen, who is going to give us sort of an informative guide and introduce the members of our group.
Good morning. It's my privilege to introduce the representatives of the Canada-Vietnam Association. My name is Julie Tran Nguyen, and I'm a director of the Canada-Vietnam Trade Council. I'm also a college professor of international business and international development in Toronto. On my left, Ms. Elizabeth Makinich, another director of the Canada-Vietnam Trade Council and also president of Moody's International in Montreal. On my left here is Mr. Phước Dang, a retired research scientist, a member of the board of editors of the International Scientific Journal Biodiversity. Next to Mr. Dang is Mr. Kiet Nguyen, Vice President, Public Relations of the Association of Vietnamese Business People and Professionals in Canada, a retired college professor and now a senior specialist in environment protection in Montreal. Next to Mr. Nguyen is Mr. Hoang Nguyen, a PhD in engineering from École Polytechnique de Montréal, the group leader of over 500 students and another 1,000 young professionals. There will be three statements. The first one will be by me, the second one will be by Mr. Kiet Nguyen, and the third one will be by Ms. Elizabeth Makinich. You can see on page 3 my statement. Last November, many groups and individuals across the country started to speak out against Bill S-219, which they claim not their view, but rather just the view of the old Saigon group supported by the U.S. who arrived in Canada in 1975-76. 22 representatives signed an open letter to oppose this bill, and a copy of this bill is available for you in English and in French. They are also available at our website, canada-ca. And from this website, you can also find many links to articles have been written on this bill. One of the most recent one was written by Jeffrey Simpson of the Globe and Mail, and you can have one here as well. If this bill is passed, it can potentially further divide the Vietnamese community and instill hatred into young generations. It can negatively affect economic, educational, and cultural opportunities for Vietnamese Canadians and many other Canadians whose work depend on good bilateral relations between Canada and Vietnam. And with its divisive nature, this bill can be an obstacle to bringing the community together to address today's community issues, including jobs for young people, education, health, and family care. Many community members were not consulted on this bill, despite the senator's claim that he traveled across the country and he racked up 50,000 in travel expenses in just 6 months after being appointed, and you can have a copy here as well. And this is a global news article that you can get a copy right here. This bill is about the Vietnamese refugees. This bill is not about the Vietnam War. Therefore, we have 3 suggestions to amend the bill. The first one is to change the date. The day of commemoration should be July 27, 1979, the day when the first flight of Vietnamese refugees landed in Toronto. The day should not be April 30th, 1975, the day that the Vietnam War ended. The second is to change the title. The title should reflect the commemoration and appreciation. For example, Appreciation of Canada by Vietnamese Refugees instead of Journey to Freedom. And 3 is to remove war-related content. The content about the war and all the negative content, especially the word Black April, should be removed if the bill is to have consensus among all community members. Thank you. And I would like to introduce Mr. Kiet Huet.
Bonjour. Le Canada a identifié le Vietnam comme un pays prioritaire dans le plan d'action marché du Canada, la stratégie d'éducation internationale et l'agenda d'aide effective. Il est dans l'intérêt du Canada de bâtir une meilleure relation avec le Vietnam en tant que partenaire stratégique pour le commerce et les investissements, les échanges en éducation, le développement de l'assistance. Non seulement le projet de loi S-219, par son préambule absolument mensonger et qui est en réalité une insulte idéologique d'extrême droite, ce projet de loi ne contribue pas à ce partenariat stratégique, mais il sera au contraire porteur potentiel d'impact négatif sur ce dernier. J'ai lu les motifs et les intentions personnelles du promoteur qui sont derrière la préparation du préambule du projet de loi S-119. Celui-ci va considérablement gêner le développement des cours d'affaires de notre firme d'ingénierie conseil au Vietnam. En conséquence, je suis pour une large consultation démocratique de la population canadienne et de larges débats publics sur la signification profonde de ce projet de loi. Merci.
My statement is from a person who is a great friend of the Vietnamese Canadian communities, and I hope part of the soul of the Vietnamese Canadian communities, although I'm an Irish person of background, Irish origin, which, like many Canadians, of course, we trace our ancestry back to so many different countries. The reason why I'm involved in this issue is because I edited 2 anniversary books for the Embassy of Vietnam, celebrating our beautiful bilateral relationship with Vietnam. I edited the 35th and the 40th, which we just published in 2013. So we have a wonderful collection of stories by people who have magnificent memories of their participation in Vietnam. For Canadians, it's always been a source of joy, a source of prosperity, of course, because we enjoy very good trade relations, and also we have a number of household name companies very actively at work in Vietnam, such as Manulife, Sun Life Financial, Bombardier, you can go on and on. We have probably 130 projects ongoing with Vietnam right now in all kinds of areas, worth billions of dollars. And we have 3,000 foreign students here from Vietnam. So we have all of us know the tremendous consumer products that come from Vietnam to Canada with regard to clothing and so many other issues. In the 40th anniversary book, the Prime Minister wrote very enthusiastically about our excellent relationship with Vietnam. Very nice article indeed. And the relationship is tremendous. And it goes back to 1954. That's how far back we go, because we had Canadians serving in Indochina in 1954 on the International Commission for Control and Supervision, trying to sort out what would happen to the territory of Indochina after the French occupation. So we had Canadians there then. We had Canadians at the Paris Peace Talks in 1973 who operated for 20 years in Indochina trying to bring about a peace. As a matter of fact, we had more Canadian officers from External Affairs at that point serving in Vietnam and Indochina than in any other venue. That's how important it was to Canada. So Canada's punched way beyond its weight in Vietnam, and the Vietnamese have had a tremendous respect for Canada and love for Canada. Anyone who travels there knows that. We are welcomed, our tourists, which flock there by the thousands every year, and so on. So our relations have been, until this time, a series of, there's been some ups and downs, but essentially we have very, very strong bilateral ties. This bill, 219, which was introduced in the Senate of Canada as a private member's bill, was at first called Black April Day. And one imagines that when the senator discovered that Black April Day was a real nasty label, I guess some of his colleagues told him to change it to Journey to Freedom. And, what he did was he wrapped up the whole refugee issue, and which Canadian doesn't love freedom and refugees? We all do, because we all are, basically. You're another, immigrants with seniority, so it's in our soul. The senator appealed to that, and he wrapped all of this up with the very malevolent attack on the government of Vietnam under the coverage of this, as I said, relatively innocuous label, "Who doesn't love journeys to freedom?" The bill was passed December 8th, 2014 in the Senate. No witnesses were invited of any consequence. And it was a dark day for democracy, a very dark day. It wound up in the House of Commons, and now it is in committee. Make no mistake about it. April 30th, which is called Black April in the actual bill. It's not about refugees or boat people or landings on the welcoming soil of Canada. Bill 219 states that this date is Black April as a result of what was an invasion of South Vietnam. A very distorted view. All you need to do is read the bill. The history is inaccurate. It's completely distorted to prove a very fallacious point. Historically, April the 30th, 1975, was the date in which an awful war was concluded and the foundations of the socialist government of Vietnam entrenched. So April 30th is a day of celebration in Vietnam. It's not Black April. It isn't. When we celebrate July 1st, we call it Black July 1st. There might be some people who want to call it that, but they wouldn't dare show their faces. In this case, the senator has. And it's a public holiday in Vietnam, April 30th. It's celebrated as Liberation Day in remembrance of the fall of Saigon and the reunification of the country in 1975. To equate it with a journey to freedom, while rhetorically attractive to some, is in no way accurate and a very malevolent attack on the whole spirit of the bilateral ties which until now we have enjoyed, we've prospered by. God knows what's going to happen if this is passed in the present form in terms of our relationship with Vietnam. Thank you. And now I'm going to welcome questions, and we're all open to those.
What's going to happen if the bill passes? What's the fear?
Should I go to the microphone?
Yes.
Just go down. And let them speak.
Yes, as I mentioned, there will be many negative impacts if this bill is passed in will definitely further divide the community, and we don't want that to happen. We want to build a strong community. We want to move forward. There's no point in bringing back an old war. We have too many issues to deal with. We have to make sure that young people have decent jobs. We want to make sure that our children have adequate education, healthcare, family care. And if you recall the Edmonton murders last December, this was just a glimpse of the many social problems that we have in our community. And secondly, what will happen is that it will affect job opportunities for those whose work relies on good bilateral relations with Vietnam. There are many trade companies with Vietnam. There are many educational institutions who rely on the exchange with Vietnam. So definitely the impact on the Vietnamese Canadian, the job opportunities will be immense. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question. So is this the current Vietnam government is a communist government that took over the southern Vietnam back in 1975?
Can we just get another speaker?
Hold on, no, sorry. You answer the question.
Continue? That's all right,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, let me answer this question. My name is Phước Dang, and Canadian call me Pete Dang. Okay, I'm a research scientist, retired, and now I am also very active working on the board of editors of the very international scientific journal. Anyway, you know, this present government, as I know, is one government from the 1975. Consecutively, they changed the the leadership until now. As you were saying.
So you're saying that okay, 1975, they took over by the communist government of Vietnam, caused a lot of people fled Vietnam to other countries. And then you're saying by commemorating that date and were influence the relationship with the communist government. So there's a relationship between the people and the relationship between the government. So that you're saying that Canada shouldn't do anything to offend that government because that can impact the relationship. Is that what you're saying?
Can I say something about this one? Actually, you know about the 30th of April 1975. You have to know the meaning of that day. Okay? April the 30th of 1975 marked the end of the brutal war. The war that even American officials admit is a mistake that killed a lot of people, millions of people on both sides. That's a mistake that we couldn't afford to have. Right? That's one thing. You know, the day the war ended in that day. Okay? The day of great jubilation of millions and millions of people of Vietnam around the world, not in Vietnam. That the jubilation, you can see it very immense. And now we call it a dark day. What do you mean by that? You ignore, the happy, the people who said that the war end, no more bomb, no more killing, no more hatred, no more atrocity, unkind. And now they're free, okay? Now, the thing is, we don't want to talk about the politics here, but, just really among the people. This bill actually offended the Vietnamese people.
But if the people are so happy the war ends, why do they risk their life to take the vote?
Well, another thing, okay. The people, this is not only the first exodus of Vietnamese people. Every time, we have 14, 15 wars in the, last 1,000 years. And every time we regain the independence, there was a exodus of people. The people who collaborate with the foreign intervention or the foreign ruler, like in China. China came to Vietnam 14 times, and was defeated for 14 times. All right, and every time there was an exodus, and you can see this is the way you can see the war ended, resulted. The people who have to flee because they worry about reprisal. But in 1975, there was no reprisal. There was no reprisal. No more, no blood ace, people playing.
Thank you. There's another question here.
Yeah.
It's for you, Ms. Nguyen. Have you reached to any members of parliament from the opposition or from this conservative caucus?
Yes, we have. We've done our best to send our message across to as many MPs as possible. We approached Ms. Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party of Canada, and she supported the amendment to change the date to July 27, because in her opinion, this is the date that the first flight to carry Vietnamese refugees from refugee camps in Asia to Canada arrived in Canada. So July 27, 1979 should be the date of celebration, of commemoration for Vietnamese refugees. It should not be the date about the war. We also approach MPs from the NDP, from the Liberal Party, and the message that we received from these MPs, and we agree with all of them, is that we should find a consensus in the community. We should work together to overcome the division. So that is what we are working on, and in order to get this consensus, we need to make the necessary amendments to the bill so that it is agreeable to everyone in the community. We also did organize an event, and we invited Minister of State Seniors, Minister Alice Wong, and two other MPs, Joe Daniel and Joe San Long. So we met with these three MPs, including one minister, and they were very kind in listening to community members' concerns. And in this meeting, yes, we did talk about the date, the title, and the content of the bill that we wanted to change.
My last question, Ms. Nguyen, is about a few weeks ago, Mr. Jason Kenney, Minister for Multiculturalism, was attending a party, a Vietnamese celebration, and he was wearing he was draped into the old Vietnamese Saigon flag. What is your reaction to that?
Would you like me to answer the question? Yes. I would say that since Canada has recognized Vietnam official flag, and that is the red flag with yellow star in the middle, we as Canadians should be using this flag. I have children in school, they are taught this flag, this official flag. They're not aware of the old Saigon flag. And I really believe that it is appropriate to use the official flag instead of the old Saigon flag.
But what does it mean to you when the minister himself drapes himself in an old flag for such a contentious issue? You surely must have something to say about that.
Well, may I invite other members to comment on this?
Yeah, to comment on that, for me, is as it's written by Jeffrey Simpson in the last article, it's like middle finger shown to my face, honestly, because as you see, I have an 8-year-old son, and he come home from school in Montreal, was taught to him that the Vietnam flag exists. And if he sees something else, then he asks me questions, so what is it? So I had to give him a true historical fact. I had to give him some explanation of what happened. Now, I don't think Jason Kenney or Mark Adler really understand the history. Mark Adler mentioned recently in the Embassy newspaper this morning, he thinks that April 1975 was the invasion, or the separation of two countries. Now this is not historical fact. Any educated person can pick up any book and will understand it. Okay. So to answer your question, it's like middle finger to my face, and I cannot accept something like this. Second of all, the Vietnamese flag, the real Vietnamese flag, as Mr. was saying, is the red with the yellow star, and that is accepted by the Canadian government. Okay.
Can't proceed to that, because it's such an important issue. You don't want
Il n'y
to.
a pas de questions spécifiques.
No? Okay. Anybody else? If I may just say one thing, in regard to the minister, flaunting the flag of Saigon at these kind of meetings. As a Canadian, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of the opportunism, the manipulative intent of going to pro-Saigon meetings and wearing this flag. It's insulting, it's humiliating, and as you said, it's like poking a finger in somebody's face. It's like taking a friend of yours and spitting at them, and that's exactly what it is. The government of Vietnam is the official government of Vietnam. We've had wonderful bilateral relations with Vietnam for 40 years, going back even before that. Why this now? The big question is, what is the government doing? Why are they supporting this kind of initiative? Is it election mongering? Who knows? I have no answers to that, but as a Canadian, I'm ashamed.
Any more questions? No, we're good? All right. That's it. Thank you.
We'd like to thank you very much for coming out today and hearing our case. We hope you'll read all the literature with interest that we provided for you. We have all kinds of links on our website. We wish you a great day. Thank you. Thank you.